Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. We're going to be looking at grade 9 and 10 level patterns. I'm going to explain the fundamentals and take you through a typical question. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the basis for this section of work is this formula over here. It is described Tn is equal to A plus D multiplied by n minus 1. It's important to note that A represents the first term, so the first term which you would find in the sequence, and D represents the difference. So what happens as we go from the first term to the second term to the third term? That is called the constant difference, and that gets multiplied by the n minus 1, which represents the number in the pattern. Number 1, usually you'll be expected to determine the next 2 or 3 terms in the given sequence, so if you had to continue it. Question 2 is to determine the general rule, also known as Tn. The third one is to determine a specific term. So in this case, find the value of term 51 and term 130. And then the last one, generally, which term has a value of 451? So now we're working backwards. Alright, I want you to pause the video and give these a try, and then we will get into the questions. Alright, so question 1, determine the next 3 terms. So if we have 6, 11, 16, 21, and that's where it goes. So if we need to determine what the next 3 are, right? Continuing this pattern, we can see that we are constantly adding 5. So from the first term to the second term, we're adding 5. And again, from the second term to the third term, we're adding 5. So we can clearly see this is our constant difference. So if we must determine the next 3 terms in the pattern, we are simply going to add 5 to the previous one. So after 21, we would have 26. Then we would have 31 and 36. So these 3 over here would be the answers to question 1. Now, question 2 says, determine the general rule Tn. Now, this is directly going to apply this little formula here. So we have Tn is equal to A plus D multiplied by n minus 1. Recall, we said A is the first term in the sequence, so we can replace that with 6. And D stands for the constant difference, which we established as 5. And we keep that in minus 1. So all that's left to do now is to expand this into products, right? Because we've got this 5 being multiplied by with the bracket. So we are going to distribute them into both terms. 6 plus 5 times n is 5n. 5 multiplied by negative 1 is negative 5. And then just simplifying the like terms. So we've got 5n. And then we have 6 minus 5, which is 1. So this would describe Tn, your general term. Alright, now for question 3, determine term 51 and term 130. This question is going to be using what we did in the previous one. Recall the rule that we established. Tn is equal to 5n plus 1. So I'm going to write that over here. Tn is equal to 5n plus 1. Now, according to what we are required to do, if we need to figure out term 51 and term 130, it's all about replacing these n values with the given one that we need to determine, right? With this given one over here and this one over here. So if we need to figure out term 51, T51 would then be equal to 5 times 51 plus 1. Do you see that? So we are replacing n with 51. Then you just grab your calculator out. I'm using a Casio. And then you can just punch in what you've done here. Okay, the answer to this is 256. So that is for part A, where we had to find term 51. Now, let's figure out term 130. So, once again, we are replacing n with 130. So term 130 is equal to 5 bracket 130 plus 1. Okay, note how we've replaced the 130, the n with 130. So again on our calculator, 5 multiplied by the number plus 1 from the rule we obtained. So the answer to that is 651. So there we go. This is the answers to question 3. Now the last question says, which term has a value of 451? So this question is the opposite of the one that we saw previously, right? These two are opposites. Here we found values from term numbers. Now we need to determine term numbers from value. Okay, so once again, using our rule, we found that Tn is equal to 5n plus 1. Now, Tn, this guy on the left-hand side of the equation, this has the value of 451, right? This is the value, and the rest stays the same. Now, how we approach this question is, it's all about isolating the n, essentially, solve for n. So, step by step through algebra, we could get the 5n on its own by getting rid of this plus 1. So I'm going to say 451 minus 1, because a plus 1 becomes minus 1 when we carry it over. So 5n is 450. Now to get n alone, what's standing in my way is this multiplication of 5. So I need to do the opposite. So I divide by 5 on both sides. Alright, so 5 and 5 cancel, we're left with n. Now we need to say 450 divided by 5, and that gives us an answer of 90. So what that means is the 90th term in the sequence we were given, the 90th term in the sequence will yield an answer of 451. Alright, I hope you guys have followed till this point. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.